If it's 11 p.m. at night or 11 a.m. in the morning, it doesn't matter. I think it's Tony Robbins who says change happens in a moment, right? Like that moment that you go, this isn't the life I want. This isn't the business I want. This isn't the direction I want to go. And you can stop and you can walk the other way.
It's so true. And to come back to what you were talking about.
First, seconds, performing, non-performing? What the f***? Note buyers, when it seems like you're in this business alone, know Chase, Robert, and the rest of their tribe are at it every week. They're bringing updates from their own note businesses as they work to find, fund, and finish deals. Follow along as they share their grassroots education with you, tuition free. If you'd like to know more about what they do and to download the entire back catalog, check out NoteMBA.com. Now, here are your hosts, Chase Thompson and Robert Woods.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Note MBA podcast, your home for note investing on iTunes. I am Chase Thompson, joined as always by the incredible, the amazing, the Floridian, Robert Woods. What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm the incredible, amazing Floridian.
Yeah, isn't that what you would call someone from, or well, you live in Florida. You're not from
Floridian. Floridian is correct. You're my talented Texan. My tenaciously talented Texan.
Oh, so now we're going to go alliteration. Love
we
it.
Are.
Awesome. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. Came back from Napa this week. Had a great trip out there. Actually, it was a crazy week. I was in Chicago for a day and then went out to San Francisco, drove up to Napa, flew to Vegas, came back here, and I've been staring at my computer looking at, a few hundred notes the last couple days and ready to make some purchases. Bought a couple notes this week as well. And sold a house. It's been a busy week, but a good one.
No, I was going to say we've actually got buying season, much like hunting and/or football season coming up, and so that's on the list to talk about. So I'm very excited about that. Really quick, so obviously we talk a ton of travel on the show. Not anything I think of note to necessarily mention with any new kind of hacks or anything that we came up with. But you were down at a mastermind. Any key takeaways from the event there that whether it be just kind of like for your business or something that I know that oftentimes when I get in those groups, those mastermind groups and things like that, just being around a ton of like-minded people that are jazzed about their business, that are invigorated about what's happening, it really gets you jacked. And it's almost like there's that afterburn effect that you can get, which is always great. But aside from that, anything else that you can or care to share?
Dude, I had just an amazing time. A great group of people, without a doubt. Scott Carson puts on a great mastermind. And, you're kind of as good as the person that leads the group, but you also, man, you're the sum of the people that are out there. And it was just a fantastic group. I have to be honest, I love going to these masterminds, and they've been great in the past. This is truly the first one I went to where there was like nobody there that like was just, that one person.
Sure.
they weren't at this event, so it was great. We had a blast. The takeaways, though, man, I could run through it, and we will, because I still actually need to really like debrief myself, because I came back and hit the ground running just because I've got so much other stuff going on. One of the biggest things I would say, in a unique way, which isn't bad, we're always talking about, I spend the money with Michelle for business and life coaching, and I'm hiring some people right now, and we talk about growing and things like that. Man, I'm not a manager. I haven't been, and it's just a skill set I've not developed. And what was really interesting is I don't know who did it, so if anybody knows who suggested this, I greatly appreciate it. But somebody had mentioned a book that they should read, and it might have been Mo, had said that the E-Myth for real estate investing. And he's like, I get it on audiobook. And, I've been reading a lot, but I've got the 10X Principle by Grant Cardone in my car, and I've listened to it, 20 times now. So I ponied up the extra couple bucks. I ordered the E-Myth for real estate investing on audio. I've got it in my car, and it could not have been recommended to me at a better time. And the only thing I have to say I'm grateful of on my own accord is that, I took action as soon as that recommendation went out there, opened up my phone, ordered it on Amazon. It was at my house when I got back. And it's pointing out, I've been extremely successful in the last couple of years with business. There's no question about that. I'm extremely happy about the growth, but it's been on me And, you know, we talk about as much as I want to say I'm an entrepreneur, which I am, and I've got this great business, which I do. It's not systematized at such a better level. And the funny thing is, one of the presentations I did, I was talking about, you know, one of my opportunities for growth, which, you know, everybody else, there's a lot of listing as weaknesses, but was my systems. You know, is in as much as that is something that supports my travel and everything else I'm able to do, I realized they could be exponentially better. And I'm seeing what goes in to really developing those systems and the training goes into those systems so that somebody else can do the role that I've been doing in certain aspects of the business. And anyway, so the E-Myth for real estate investing hits on that stuff. If you're running the business by yourself and you're doing everything, I think it is an essential tool. And I think it's going to go into like the top 5 like motivating, action oriented pieces of content that I'm consuming this year.
That's strong. That wasn't even on the list. I love that we're just riffing. That's fantastic. That's a huge takeaway. I mean, you brought that up to me yesterday on a phone call. I mean, you are taking that role and that opportunity extremely seriously. And you had asked, you're like, hey, have you heard this? And I was like, oh man, no, I haven't. So now I've got to go out there and make it happen as well. But the big thing is obviously huge recommendation, action taken. Obviously, highly recommend everybody go check that out if it's where you're at or even if it's where you're looking to go. It also reminds me, and when we were talking about this same thing yesterday, you mentioned kind of where the business is at, where you were at with your systems, how the 4-hour work week starts off, right? Like Tim Ferriss is like, you know, I got this business, it's jiving, it's running, but I'm also kind of running myself into the ground. I don't know if you were, I don't know, maybe you could let us know, but I don't think you were necessarily running yourself into the ground as much as say he might have been, but he got to that point where he's like, there's just got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to run these systems. So,
you know, on that, I would tell you in the last year, I wasn't. Since about April or May, I felt like this for like 3 months because I bought the apartment building. We've got the spec home. I had a fix and flip dealing with rentals, got the note portfolio. We've got the podcast. And I've been out looking for other multifamily acquisitions and larger commercial development deals to do. And then I get bogged down in the minutia. Like I was saying, I've got a stack of receipts that need to be this, and I got to deal with my accountant. And it was a reality of there was just so much going on. And thankfully, I at least looked at it and was like, I got to get this figured out. And that's why I brought the guys in, why I'm finally taking the time to write down these systems and get it so that these processes can be in order. And, you know, my goal, it's August right now. This isn't going to happen overnight. I honestly don't think I can get the systems in place to where it runs itself. I mean, 9 months would be optimistic. But I would say by the end of the year, I'll be in a spot where I have probably been able to offload at least 50% of what's bogged me down to refocus on, you know, really, you know, my role between you and me and with what we do is like interfacing with investors and dealing with the asset acquisition side of things, making sure I'm managing relationships with the funds or the sellers that we're working with, and that we've got enough capital to transact all the deals that we're doing. As opposed to, am I keeping track of receipts for my $18 lunch when I was in Chicago and making sure it gets to the accountant?
I like it. And we've been getting a lot of emails recently, and we'll talk about some of the questions in a bit that have come through the emails. But one of the things that has been touched on time and again in a lot of those emails that we'd been getting was how much more geared our earlier content was, our earlier episodes was towards that new investor, that newbie investor, and how some of the things that we've been covering recently has been a little bit more geared to people that have, say, an established business or that are really gearing up in that direction, which I think is just us as a general growth of where we're at, what we're doing, the amount, types, and all that kind of stuff, the deals that we have going on. But if you were to take it all the way back as a newbie kind of starting out, or if you're just kind of getting your business up and running, these systems we're talking about, these operating procedures where you're talking about offloading these things and doing it as they come and really being conscious and thinking it through as time's going on, that's a huge deal, right? I mean, like if you had done some of these things or recognized some of these patterns early on, some of these trends, you wouldn't maybe necessarily be in, you might be in the same situation, just maybe not as bad, right? Or you wouldn't have necessarily as much to offload maybe. And so from people that get us emails, people that send us these things, know that these small things that we're talking about, where our business is at and how we're transitioning, all that kind of stuff, these are things that you can implement in the beginning as best as possible to then, freaking scale like crazy, right?
I wish I had implemented these things. And for me, I think it's I just didn't. I was having this conversation with a good friend of mine the other night, talking about your stages of knowledge, and you talk about your unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know.
Ooh, I like that.
And then
where did that come from? If you don't mind asking.
We had a very extended conversation. I had about a 2-hour phone call the other day, and it was fantastic.
I love that phrase though. That's so good.
Well, so we went through it, and she was laughing a little bit, but you go through that, and then you've got your conscious incompetence. You're just not aware of it. Your conscious competence, and then your unconscious competence. So you do it without knowing. And it was a funnier phone call because at the time I was maybe having a little bit more of a challenge with pronunciation, but I didn't really even think about it until now. And you're like, you don't know what you don't know, that it would make sense to write down these systems and put them in order and make sure you get a checklist. And it's kind of like if you think about the safety of an airplane. Every time they're getting ready to take off, they go through the checklist. They got a checklist every time. And just getting consistent doing that. And it's maybe I haven't had to have that type of consistency I haven't. We know that I haven't. So that type of like the regiment of daily activities that you get used to with either routines or rituals, things that, people with military backgrounds seem to excel in that because they went through a phase where, I don't want to say actually, but, it was beat into them that, you do this in this order and this is why. And when you do it, you don't get killed. If you miss an item, the odds of you going and getting hurt or hurting somebody, on your team goes up exponentially. Mm-hmm. So to what you were saying, I think, talking about advanced skills and things like that, if somebody's new and listening to this, or you're new and listening to it and you go, well, I haven't been doing that, start doing it. It goes to the same level. I had an amazing phone call just last night with a very good friend of mine from my childhood, who he's not in a bad spot, but he's not in the best spot. His father's passed away recently. He had to transition out of a business into a different job. The job provided him the security that he was looking for, but isn't giving him the income and the vacation that he really wanted. And we went into a conversation about having goals. And it's interesting because, we just did our goal review last week, and he admitted, he didn't have any written goals. And, by the time we got off the phone call last night, he had started working on some ideas and writing some down about some actual goals to put in place for himself. So there's you're never too late to do it.
No, that's definitely, I think that's like the old school, I say old school, but like that tried and true kind of advice, right? Like, when was the best time to do X? Well, the best time to start your weight loss program was a year ago. When was the second best time? Yesterday. What's the absolute best time in the current situation? Today, right? Like, you don't have to wait till Monday to set goals. You don't have to wait till January 1st to have any sort of, quote, resolutions or goals ready to roll. The best time is right now if you haven't already put something in place, and just understanding that. If it's 11 p.m. at night, or 11 a.m. in the morning, it doesn't matter. I think it's Tony Robbins who says change happens in a moment, right? Like that moment that you go, this isn't the life I want. This isn't the business I want. This isn't the direction I want to go. And you can stop and you can walk the other way.
Oh, it's so true. And to come back to what you were talking about, and we may end up changing the overall story with where we were going on some of our lists for this show. But, you were asking me, about some of the takeaways from this mastermind group, and it's just so uniquely powerful what you take away from taking the time to look at your business and reflect. And the better part is that you've got there were 35 of us all together in the group. You've got other people sharing their businesses, their personal strengths, their personal weaknesses, sometimes bringing light to things that you didn't highlight as a strength for yourself that maybe you did, and then also pointing out weaknesses that you weren't either admitting to yourself or willing to look at. One of the just small, simple things I had written down in one of my presentations was that I wasn't being active in my local market because I just wasn't. We've got the podcast. I mean, we've had an international reach with the podcast, which has been great. But just because of that, why am I neglecting that one-on-one FaceTime I can have with investors here? So I was like, we had a Central Florida Realty Investors meeting this week on Wednesday night. And I was like, I didn't really want to go, And then I was like, you know what? I just put this down just 5 days ago that I wasn't doing enough in the market. And I was like, get up, get in the car, let's go. So we went to it, and then completely irrelevant, the guy talking was talking about short sales and stuff, but came away with just some great ideas for what we need to be doing for marketing, for reaching out. And we haven't talked about on a different level. This guy was talking about contacting leads in a different way. And my takeaway from it, which I think will be a good share here, was I set up a Facebook page for my company. And it's going to be pseudo marketing for how we do the investing, but not really. It's going to be meant also as a platform to reach out to borrowers in a different format. There's so many people that are on Facebook, and the borrowers that we have, most of them we can find, and we can find on Facebook. And I think it's another great way to reach out to them. But when they come to the Facebook business page, it's not all about how much money are we making and the deals we're closing and how special we are. It's about who have we helped, or what do we do? What are the different ways to get out of the situation that you're in right now? I mean, we're going to have both of those. But I think what's going to be presented at first to the borrowers that we try to contact is, hey, here's some options we can do. This is what we've done in the past. You know, we own your mortgage. Come to the website and check out some of the opportunities that you've got.
That is huge. That's huge.
Yeah,
we've already had a little bit of this conversation, but it's still huge, right? Like,
yeah, and I mean, I think it's just, you know, we talk about the different ways we market or we try to make contact. You know, the person that's not paying their bills, man, they've just been getting banged on with letters. You know, that letter looks the same in the mail every day. They're not going to open it, and then you get the yellow postcard. Okay, maybe a little more attention. Or you send them a letter that's handwritten and it's in a really nice linen envelope and it looks like a wedding invitation. Well, they're going to open that one, you know, the one that looks like it came from the credit card company or the eye doctor they haven't paid or whoever. And Facebook, these people on Facebook all the time. I mean, how often are you in a public place where there's downtime and no social interaction? Maybe like a subway, a train, a line at the bank or the grocery store, and you look around and people's phones are open. Instagram, Facebook.
So quick story.
Snapchat.
Quick story. Last night, I had to run to the store to get my niece's birthday is today, so I had to run to the store to get a present for her, right? So I'm at the store. The lady in front of me that was checking out, she had finished, and you know the person, the CSR or whatever, you know, the person, the cashier was helping her bag her stuff up. So she turned around, and I was just standing there. I was just hanging out. You just kind of looking around, kind of just hanging out because, and so she asked me, she says, something wrong? And I said, no. And she said, oh. And then she just kind of like, I guess maybe my age, I don't know what it was, but she just felt inclined to ask, is your phone broken? And I was like, no. What are you talking about? And she was like, oh, well, usually the person that's mine. And okay, so like that's hysterical, first of all, that she is so astute just to go like, this guy's either mad or there's a problem or his phone is broken because he is standing here looking at me and just kind of hanging out, right? And so I'm just like, no. And so what happened is a week ago, and I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast. I think I have, but maybe not. I instituted a personal digital sundown. So at 8:00 at night, the phone goes away. I'd like it to be sooner, but like that, it just doesn't work that way sometimes. But at 8:00 at night, the phone basically goes in a drawer. I'm done with it. I'm over it. Like it's no longer a part of my life, right? Like digital sundown for me, 8:00 when the sun goes down, phones go down basically. So I had to go to the store. I'm looking around, like I'm just hanging out, right? Like it just blew her mind.
Well, it's so powerful. Well, in a unique way. I mean, it's society now, and listen, I'm just as guilty of it very often, but we have this Pavlovian response to downtime, and it needs to be filled. I need to be busy. I should be doing something.
Totally. I'm
not allowed to just stand here and look around. And it's just one of those things that you're kind of like, oh, okay, like, how's this going on? I mean, I know that I basically need to be no one's emergency contact because I have my phone on silent almost all the time.
If somebody's in trouble, don't.
Yeah, well, I mean,
call 911. No,
you know, and it's not that. Like, I get back to people and I'm responsive, and when I know calls are happening, I'm usually looking for my phone or for the phone call to come in. But otherwise, we look at all the stuff we're doing. I don't want my day interrupted by whatever I'm doing. We talk about, that book by Cal Norton, Deep Work, that I read, and just staying focused and being in my phone's ringing every moment, or I have to shut the notifications off on my MacBook because I'm sitting here looking at spreadsheets, and I get a phone call about something and I'm just kind of like, and it throws you so off track. You really do lose 10 or 15 minutes of focus. And since I got back from Napa, all day yesterday really was meant to be. What actually turned into about 5 hours in the evening was just straight staring at spreadsheets, going through assets, looking through deals. And, everything was shut off at that point because I know what kind of a mental nightmare it is for me to get interrupted while I'm in the middle of trying to do that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. No. It's completely legit. It's 100% the bane of my existence is my ringer. If you've ever heard my phone ring, you are lying. I literally had my iPhone on silent since I bought it. It never comes out of a little trigger on the side that you can sign. It's never happened. It's on vibrate 100% of the time, much to the chagrin of my wife sometimes. But I do check it, but it's just on silent all the time. So it just has never happened, which is fascinating. So that was not the first 20 minutes I expected with the show.
We digressed.
But to talk a little bit about what you had going on yesterday with staring at spreadsheets, like I said, we've got hunting season coming up, football season, and, of course, buying season. We have had just a crazy, like you mentioned, coming weeks where we're just trying to do a tremendous amount of acquisitions when it comes to this. So we've been sending out, so we have a network of JV investors that we work with. We've been sending out the contacts to them saying, kind of priming that pump. Hey, guys, here's what you can expect. Here's what's going on, all of those kinds of things. And with this, quote, buying season that we have coming on, do you feel like there has been an uptick in the availability of these assets, or on our side, has there just been exits? We've just had so many exits that now we're back in a combination. What are we looking at there?
So I think it's a combination chicken of the egg. In reality, if I want to go a little woo-woo on it, it's because for the last 2.5 months, we've bought some assets, but we've been extremely busy basically cleaning up stuff that could have been better organized, and then onboarding a couple people working for us, and also taking the time to create systems which are going to provide a great exponential long-term value. And my focus was not on buying. And probably about 4 weeks ago, you and I were talking about what we need to be doing. We knew we were exiting a lot of deals. We've got, about $500,000 in the pipeline ready to go. And I started going, oh man. And here's what's funny. My focus went from I've got all this stuff going on. I've got the apartment building and I've got this and I've got that to we've got $500,000 that I need to put back out on the street. I got to go find stuff to buy that's good stuff. And I need to start now because it's going to be a 2-month run. And I think really it was just you and I have been talking. We've been creating our own system again, getting it better behind the scenes for managing how we go about doing this. And I think that's what our focus was on in a unique way. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff available, but it was just kind of one after another. I was getting emails as I started saying, hey, we've got capital. We need to go do deals, with people saying, hey, I got a couple assets. Do you want to take a look at these? Do you want to take a look at that? And that's how we've bought these couple assets. And, my goal for this next, probably month, really out through the month of August is, bring on, the number of assets to me is not really what we focus on, but, we're easily going to do $500,000 worth of acquisitions this month.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And like you said, there's just been this fortuitous opportunity of people saying, hey, I've got 1 or 2 assets. Would you like to look at them? And then other people going, hey, are you guys, what's going on? What's happening?
Where's our deal flow at? We want to see a deal to put this cash in. My IRA is getting cold over here.
So it's been really nice. And there's been new people that have come through. I mean, I think the biggest overall message for me throughout this time is, we've been setting up these systems. Yeah, we've been putting these things in place. And then it's really weird when you start doing these things and then things start working. Right? You talk about your business. You, in an appropriate sense, you're talking about your business. You're talking about what's going on in your life, different things like that. And then it's not law of attraction. Like all of a sudden you're talking about it and all this kind of stuff just naturally starts coming to you. Though some people operate in that way. I also think it's just a matter of like, so-and-so didn't know that you did that thing. And they got 50 grand sitting on the side. And then email you, hey, are you guys still looking for JV investors? Or it's like with any kind of advertising, right? They say we've got to see this thing 7 times before it hits us. And I think now probably it's got to be a little more, but like
I love that one because I've got a buddy here in Orlando who I've probably sent 4 deals to, and each time it's, oh no, it's too risky, or it's this, or he's got, and then I was just like, okay. And he keeps seeing deals coming out. And then a couple weeks ago, he's like, okay, you need to keep me in mind. I'm ready to do this. He's talked himself into it, kind of thing, which is, I was like, okay, whenever you're ready, let's do it.
I love it. That's fantastic. That's huge. I think that's right where it's at.
What else you got on our checklist?
So really quick, we're going to run through. I'm going to save one of the topics for next week. Very excited about that. Really quick, I just want to run through a couple of questions. These were questions I've actually already technically answered in emails from people that have sent us emails. But as a community at large, these are obviously great questions for everyone to kind of have answers to if this is something you need. So David sent us an email, and part of it was basically asking about the necessary resources pre-purchase. Who should you have lined up? How should you have, some of these dominoes already in place so when you find that deal, you're ready to roll? He obviously had on the list attorney, accountant, and then the last one was servicer, and then et cetera. So my message back to him obviously was, the servicer, you've got to have them set up. Attorneys, maybe, but not really, because unless you're just buying in one state or something like that, if a deal comes across that's in one of, say, your top markets, but it isn't somewhere where you have an attorney relationship, it isn't 100% necessary to have that set up, in the beginning. An accountant, you might just want to have that period, I guess, but just depends on where you're coming from a business perspective. But what other than, say, a servicer would you say is a necessary pre-purchase resource?
Pre-purchase resource. I think maybe it kind of goes to a checklist, like we've talking about with a system.
Yep.
BPO company, maybe something like you can use Red Bell, RPR, Valuation Visions, which you're going to reach out to Michelle. We should be having an interview with her, correct?
We will.
Yeah, so you've got that pre-purchase. You don't need an account with Pro Title USA, but you need to have that in your checklist to have Pro Title USA. I would reach out to a property preservation company. There's a variety of them. We've had Property Masters on the show. I've been very happy with my relationship with them, but they are in limited markets. There are other property preservations across the country that, people, I'd recommend you go out and you got to test these places for yourselves. Hopefully our experiences, because we try not to bring anybody on that we've used everyone that we've ever brought onto the show. That way we can kind of say we at least vetted them once, and we had a really good we had a good experience. And I think for the most part we've maintained a good experience with all of our vendors. We haven't had anybody where afterwards it's just kind of been like extremely disappointing. Well, we would have mentioned it actually.
Yeah, probably. So yeah, I think
what else can you
thing? I was trying to think of if there was.
I don't really think.
What are your thoughts on JVs? Maybe meaning having maybe some money line.
Yeah, I think you should without question. And I think a lot of it, this is something that we were talking about a little bit ago, where you were like, sales guys get paid the most for a reason. Like in every organization, the sales guys usually are the highest paid, other than, the owners and the execs. But, a big part of that is, I think, people that are new to the business, it's completely different than people that have been doing it for a while. But speaking with new joint venture investors, and this is something that we won't go into deeply right here because this is just our system that we've created. But I suggest you need to create a system for how you are going to manage your JV investors. And when I say manage, I mean at every phase. How are you going to manage them before they've invested or provided, so let's say before they've joint ventured with you and provided funding? How are you going to manage them during the process? And then as you exit a deal and you dissolve that joint venture, what are your steps to manage them afterwards? So those are things I would tell you to think about. That's one of the things I think that's one of our golden laying geese that we'll keep to ourselves. But I will put it out there that you really do need to invest some time and energy in thinking through those. That's the giving nugget we'll give for those topics right now.
The last question.
The ROI calculator?
No, well, we could. We've also got a question from Gary about, I think this one's going to be pretty easy. So I'll throw this one out. I think it'll be easy. But he said, I've heard mention on the show a couple times of hard versus soft collateral. Can you define what that is? I've tried Google search and could not find the exact definition of both.
All right, so hard and soft collateral. If you're looking at hard collateral, it's going to be that actual physical manila envelope with all the paperwork in it. Chase, what were you saying? What kind?
Yeah, it's if you've ever been in the mortgage business, it's the file. It's the file. It's the one that travels around the office. It's the file. It's
got stickers on it, account numbers that you'll never recognize because they mean nothing to you because they're not part of your system. But inside of that hard file, you'll find sometimes you'll get everything from an old BPO to the originating paperwork. The loan documents will sometimes be in there. You'll get a title report. That hard collateral file is also the one where the unicorn check exists at for insurance claims or whatever else exists, or the buyer, or the borrower short sold the property and the check ended up in there from, Wells Fargo or Chase and nobody knew what to do with it. It doesn't happen often, but I've heard that it happens. Soft collateral is going to be during your due diligence. Somebody's going to send you the electronic copies. That's really what it is, whether it's Dropbox or they straight email you a PDF or they've got their own proprietary data storage system that they give you access to. It's going to be usually just your promissory note, the mortgage, deed of trust. If it's like a contract for deed, it'll be that. It'll just be the basic documents. They may provide you with the assignment chain. It's necessary that you have a clean assignment chain when you go to record everything. I don't always check to make sure all of the assignment chains are in there. I think it would probably be a good thing to do because it would save money in my processes. So I will now make a note to add that to my system because that's a great place to negotiate to save a couple bucks because you're going to spend $100 or $200 to chase down a missing assignment. So I'm glad we just discussed that. So thanks for the question. I found one more thing to put into my diligence process to kind of analyze and put on the checklist.
I was going to say, there you go. Those are really taking notes. Now you guys will.
Yeah, no kidding. Hopefully you're adding that to yours as well.
Somebody actually mentioned, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but somebody actually mentioned how much they love listening to our show in the car, except for the fact, and I appreciate this, but they usually have to run back through it again to make sure they take notes because obviously they're not able to take notes in their car. We've had people talk about listening when they walk or run. I'm sure the same thing actually applies. So I think we get a couple of double listens by that factor there. So I like that. That's kind of fun.
Well, hopefully they're reading the show notes that these the production companies put together for us.
Those that have existed since forever. There you go.
That email we get every week. So that's been great. What's the other thing? Oh, we did have a question about the ROI calculator. It's this long-running thing. It is very funny. Some people get so annoyed when I'm like, I'm just not going to give you mine. It's like giving a child a loaded gun.
Yes.
And that's the one thing that cracks me up. One is that people even think I should give it to them. We give people enough. It's kind of funny. It's just one of those things. But I'm always happy to talk about some of the stuff that goes into it. You've got to create it, though. Everybody's got a different ROI calculator. We were working with Peter, and this guy's got a tech background. He's so intelligent. He sent me this thing that was, oh my goodness. I don't even know how long it took him to put it together. And I know it makes analyzing deals easy for him, but I'm a pretty simple guy, and it was quite intense. And I think if you sent that to somebody else, all they would do is successfully lose money, not knowing how to do it. But some of the stuff that goes into it, I kind of tell everybody you need to create your own because your numbers are going to be different. You've got, if you're analyzing for a rental exit, you've got property management, you've got a reserve, you've got HOA, you've got taxes, you've got a whole list of stuff. Insurance, you may have mortgage payments if you're going to refinance out that you can build into it. I mean, you're really kind of unlimited into the expenses that you build into it. I mean, up front, it's really predicated upon your business. Are you hiring somebody to do borrower outreach? Are you hiring a door knocker? Is it the same person? Are you servicing with collections or not with collections? In your due diligence, did you get an O&E? Did you get a BPO? Did you get on Craigslist and send pictures? Did you fly up there? So these are all different things and different expenses that need to go into it, which is another reason to highlight why you just need to create your own and tweak it. Trust me, mine got to where it's at because I lost money not knowing what I didn't know. I was unconsciously incompetent about a few things, and I've made those adjustments. And what's not great to admit, but good because we've been working on all these things and it's on our list, is that I'm still consciously incompetent about a few things that need to be changed inside of my spreadsheet in a couple orders. They're nuances. They make no huge difference to the way I evaluate my deals, but they're just things that need to be changed and adjusted because that's what you should be doing if you're growing and improving your systems and what you're using as your tools. if I need a bigger hammer and I'm just, sitting here with like a tack hammer, sometimes you got to go out to the store and get the actual hammer or the sledgehammer. And then eventually you call it a wrecking ball.
All Miley Cyrus style. Alrighty. Well, I think that's it. There was something else, but we'll cover that next time. I think the tangentialness in the beginning was absolutely fantastic. Anything else for the people, Mr. Woods? I feel like it's been a good bit.
I mean, dude, here's what's crazy is I didn't even touch on a fraction of my takeaways from this last weekend. Like, it's crazy. There was so much great stuff. And we'll, I think some of it will come out throughout the course of the show in the next few weeks as we actually implement it.
Sure.
But the only thing to put out there with that in a weird reinforcement of what I realized from last week, that I wasn't spending enough time in my local market and being around people who are doing what I'm doing. Man, being part of a mastermind group, having a mentor, spending time around like-minded people that are trying to improve themselves, improve their businesses. And not only that, man, some amazing people. There's a gentleman there from Utah, Scott Gilley. He's got an orphanage that he built out in Haiti.
Scott's incredible.
I mean, I was listening to his presentation, and then that comes up, and I'm like, the dude lives to make some money and, wants his house and do his deal and then travel to Haiti. And I love to travel, but I was so impressed with that. And I was like, what was interesting is just the day before, somebody been having a conversation with me about my need to start looking into, like, what do I want to give back to? And do I want to find that one thing? And I love that just the next day, it was just a reinforcer of the power we have to make huge incomes and be extremely successful, live great, happy, positive lives, and then take that and just spread it out and give some good back to the world. So it was like I said, just an amazing group of people doing nothing but just to improve themselves and the world around them. So it was one of those things that, just like I said, reinforces. If you're in one of those spots where things just aren't great, things can always be better. But if your attitude is things aren't great right now, start looking around. Like, what are you doing? Who are you spending time with? What's got things not great right now? And how do we just focus on, let's make things better?
That's awesome. Well, that's it for the show. Appreciate you guys so much for being here today. It was, this felt like a good one. I'm really pumped about this one. If this is your first time here, be sure to head over to iTunes, give us a rating, a review, subscribe. We appreciate that. It helps. We love when people do that. As always, the show notes will be available over at notemba.com. You can check them out over there. If you have any questions, like some of the other people that reached out to us for this show, you can send an email to us at ask@notemba.com. We've got all of our email server issues taken care of. Everything's good there. And as always, tell 5 other people you know this weekend about the Note MBA podcast. Catch you guys next week.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks for listening.